What is up, investing bros? Today we are going to be getting through some juicy, hard-hitting Bitcoin and crypto news. Man, it is going to be quite a show. I'm so excited for you guys to be joining me today as we head deeper into the week. We're going to get the CPI numbers at the end of the stream at 9:30 Eastern Standard Time, and we're going to also hear about a couple of other stories that may not be in your radar, but absolutely should be. But before we go any further, let's go ahead and check on in here with old Bitcoin. So Bitcoin getting rejected here on today's daily candle off of that $50,000 mark. And this is the all-important psychological number, and we're about to read about it. We're about to see what the mainstream media, CNBC, has been saying about Bitcoin and what mainstream finance brains are kind of digesting this morning. But this is the daily chart here. As you can see, we did not get a daily candle body close above 50,000. And if you've watched the 9 a.m. stream here on the Investing Bros, you'll know that I'm a big fan of a good candle body close where I want to see it, and I did not get to see that. The MACD here showing we got an accelerated histogram yesterday, which was nice. I was not thinking that we were going to have an up day yesterday. I did not think that we would clear 50,000. We did. Bullish, right? The most bullish thing that a price can do is go up. So it's great. Right now, the current candlestick is kind of showing that, probably what I thought was going to happen yesterday might be happening today. But I said that yesterday, and then it didn't end up happening. And literally, as I speak, you can see that green histogram is fighting to be still acceleratory. Those MACD lines telling nothing but a bullish story for sure, up and to the right, with just an ever so slight kind of reorientation to a slightly less aggressively bullish angle for that top blue line. Let's take a look here at the charts yet again. Taking a look at the daily, you can see we are still above the upper band of the Bollinger, even with this red candlestick that we're currently in. And this is one of those candlesticks. Let me know in the chat, what is the name of the candlestick here? I want to say spinning top, if you could categorize it. But ultimately, it kind of reminds me of this one way over here, back here in January 11th. And why does it remind me? It reminds me, actually, all three of these, because there's a lot of disagreement. Right? There's a lot of contention back and forth, and it's almost symmetrical, which means that the market is just really, really trying to figure out exactly which direction that they want to go with this price. And ultimately, it's great, right? Because if we can consolidate right under 50,000 like I thought we were going to, that would be really good. Maybe even get a little bit of a test lower, maybe back down here to 46. Or 47,000, excuse me, and then a push higher. I think that would be a more compelling, a stronger market structure going into a candle close above 50,000, and that would just make investors like me have a little bit more confidence in this rally. Because so far, this rally has just been face melting, right? A face melting, quick 17%, call it. And man, I don't know. I feel like we need a little bit of a retest, a little bit of a cool down. We didn't get it yesterday. I thought we were going to when we were kind of around here. I thought we were going to get a retest. We ended up blasting through 50. Hey, I'll take it, right? But we are going to have to cool down, and it may not be today. All right. So we're going out to the question though for today, which is when alt pump? When will these alts pump? And we're going to be answering that question here in just a little bit. But before we do, there's actually something that I wanted to show you. So if you take a look here at Bitcoin, what you'll notice is that these mid-January highs, right, they came in, why? Because of the approval of the spot Bitcoin ETF, really the anticipation of that approval, and then the blow off top, and then a test lower. Bitcoin has surpassed those highs, right, which is something that's easy to forget about because now everybody's thinking, okay, all-time highs, right? Will we get to all-time highs before the halving, right? There's new questions, right? But let's look back at history and say, okay, so Bitcoin has surpassed these prices. Of 47 ended up being very, very important because of the highs that were put in here by the candlestick body closes. And then up here at 49,000 also ended up being pretty important because of this wick close here. I'm on Coinbase one-day charts. If we look at Ethereum, we are now in a similar boat, right? Ethereum has gone ahead and cleared, closing a candle body above these candle body closes back here from that mid-January, that all-important SEC approval of the spot Bitcoin ETF date. Obviously, the bullishness poured over into the Ethereum price as well. 2,619 was that price to clear. We cleared it. And now, similar to Bitcoin, that daily candle is fighting to go higher, right? But ultimately, we are getting a little bit of sideways movement for Bitcoin and for Ethereum. And when there's sideways movement, but new highs, right? New 2024 highs. For Ethereum, we haven't gotten up above that wick yet, right? So for Bitcoin, again, just over illustrating this, we have gotten above the wick. For Ethereum, have not gotten above that wick, but we have gotten above those candle body closes. So that's great. Now, if you look at pretty much every other crypto, right? These January 10th highs, this one. So let's see, January 10th. So for Cardano, you know, the structure looks a little different, but it's actually pretty close. Cardano is actually pretty darn close to those highs from January. Now, it was higher back here, right? But that's a different story. Obviously, each altcoin is going to have its own narrative. Cardano only 6% away from those highs from January, right? January 10th, mid-January, and then another 13% away from current prices, away from that wick that got put in due to that Bitcoin bullishness. Okay. And then what I want to do for the rest of the show is I'm going to go through and show you all which altcoins are actually the furthest from those highs from January 10th, and thusly, you know, which ones you can make the most money from. So we're going to take a look at them, and I'm also going to help you all see kind of when this alt season is going to be coming in. By alt season, I mean mini alt season. The true alt season doesn't come until well after the halving for Bitcoin. That's when we're going to see prices get very much more elevated than they are now in the altcoin realm. Speaking of which, the bubbles are green, decidedly green across the board. And the one you can't see behind me is Render. It's up almost 12% this morning. So we've got some nice names here making moves higher. Maker, man, I haven't seen this name in a while. Let's look at this real quick, kind of this crude chart. So Maker on the 1 year is doing well. So you just never hear about that one, but it is a pretty big one. It's one of the A16Z held fund coins. So that's something you want to definitely keep on your radar. I don't hold any, but I might. All right, so that is going to be your crypto bubbles. There's no leaning about it. This is decidedly green today for your altcoins. You could say that there's a pump. There certainly is in names like Ordi, Beam, Blur, Flow, STX, Render, AKT, right? These are some of the names that have been doing well and are expected to continue to do well. Here's one you don't see on this very often. It's Ethereum. Look at that, up 6%. Ethereum has not been that volatile. Atom up 6%. H&T, Helium, that migrated over to the Solana network, up 5.5. Solana itself up 6.4. So the day is looking pretty bullish already. Lido up 7.8. Man, I just can't stop reading them. Can't stop reading the bullish vibes. Well, speaking of reading, let's see what the mainstream financial minds are reading this morning if they choose to click on this article from CNBC. Bitcoin extends its gains, breaking through $50,000 level. Yes, you heard that right. Maybe this is the first time you're hearing this reporting. It is $50,000, guys. It is very exciting. $50,000 is a significant milestone, says the author of this article, for Bitcoin after the launch of spot ETFs last month not only failed to elicit a move above this key psychological level, but led to a sell-off and some deep soul-searching about these new Bitcoin products. All right, that was from a crypto service firm, Nexo, that comment. So positive sentiment has returned to crypto after big outflows from Grayscale. Bitcoin ETF suppressed sentiment over the past month. We're absolutely going to be looking pretty much the meat and the potatoes of the news is around these inflows and outflows for those spot Bitcoin ETFs, which are becoming extremely important by the day. Several factors are influencing market dynamics, including China's adoption of more relaxed monetary policy. Yeah, we've been tracking that one, which has led to increased asset purchases, notably in Bitcoin and equities, says James Butterfill. That's a fun name. Head of research over at crypto-focused asset managers CoinShares. Demand for spot Bitcoin ETFs remain robust, with net inflows of $1.1 billion over the past week and $2.8 billion since their launch. On Friday alone, ETFs acquired 12,000 Bitcoin, significantly outpacing the daily creation rate of approximately 900 new Bitcoins. All right, so that is what the mainstream financial media is kind of pumping out. Very bullish, right? Very focused on growth. There's one more quotation. These are some of the tickers, right, that are being kind of pushed. Now, these are on the equity side, right? But Monday's climb pulled crypto equities higher. Crypto exchange Coinbase gained more than 3%. MicroStrategies did 11. CleanSpark 14. Iris Energy 16. Marathon Digital 14. Okay. So obviously, it's CNBC. They're going to pump their stocks for sure. You already know it. Caleb Franson has a post here on X, and I want to show it to you all. But I want to linger here a moment, right? Because we are in this kind of this final phase of the prophecy that we talked about yesterday, which is essentially at first they ignore you, then they fight you, or then they laugh at you, then they fight you, and then you win, right? We're kind of in that transitional phase of them fighting us, right? We're still seeing Janet Yellen coming out and asking for more regulation from Congress. Honestly, that's bittersweet. There's good and bad to that. There can absolutely be good regulation. Right, but then you have the SEC kind of going back and forth, waiting till the final deadline to approve the Bitcoin ETF, spot ETF. And then you have, there's greater uncertainty as to whether or not the Ethereum spot ETF will be passed, right? And so there's generally there is still friction. It's not like a smooth, frictionless system right now that loves Bitcoin, that loves crypto at all. We feel it day in and day out. However, that is starting to change because we are starting to win, right? And so we are in that transitional period. And so when articles like this come out, I like to bring them to your attention because it's good to know, it's good to get outside of our bubble a little bit and see kind of what other people are reading. And what I'm noticing here is that what they're reading is starting to look a lot like what we're reading, right? And this is kind of leveraging in and kind of compounding, right? And showing that price is likely to continue to go up to the upside. Not immediately, not in the next hour, right? What I'm saying is generally money is going to be convinced. The managers of these big pools of money is going to be convinced. Their confidence to the contrary of Bitcoin being legitimate is being eroded day by day, article by article, conversation by conversation with their peers, with their boss, with their subordinates, with their families, with their friends, saying, hey, you haven't bought any Bitcoin yet? You haven't bought any for your clients yet? Whoa, you're going to get a bad entry. Right? Those type of comments erode your confidence in your decision not to buy Bitcoin for yourself and for your clients. So that's what we're seeing, and that is the big goal right now is to convince money managers who manage pension funds and really big family offices and even sovereign wealth funds to go ahead and pull the trigger and get some freaking exposure, get off zero. Let's hear what Caleb Franson has to say. We're going to be going through a couple of different charts here in relation to the GBTC flows and the spot ETF flows in general. Let's take a look at those now. We're going to start off with our boy, Caleb Franson. He said, you're still not bullish enough on spot Bitcoin ETF inflows. And as you can see here, the latest data point coming in February 12th, so just after this one right here, you can see that now the outflows, which are in purple, are generally going completely down, right? Grayscale has been the only one going down. The rest of them have been going up and not even to the right, just straight up, which is kind of cool. As you can see, then the Bitwise is the light gray up here. The dark gray is going to be BlackRock, and then Fidelity is green. And those make up the majority, right? But ARK Invest 21 shares is the yellow, and that also is doing pretty well. Yesterday, right? So very recently, ARK 21 shares actually kind of gaining a little bit more margin than they had before, okay? But generally, what you should be pulling away from this is that GBTC selling is over. And we've got a couple more graphs to kind of highlight that. I'll go ahead and jump to that graph actually now. This one's from Bitcoin Archive saying grayscale Bitcoin outflows have stabilized under 100 million per day as inflows into the other 9 Bitcoin ETFs are around 400 to 600 million per day. So you can take a look at that. This is just another way of looking at essentially the way that these purple histograms are manifesting lower with the passage of every day. this one here is showing, that this is kind of leveling out. This is the total outflow in red, right? And then this is going to be the daily outflow in blue. And as you can see, very bullish for Bitcoin. Very bullish for Bitcoin indeed. That is what we want to see, is the biggest seller participant in the market waning in its selling volume. That's it. That's what we want to see, and it's happening, right? That's a large reason why Bitcoin has been able to get up and penetrate through 50,000, that big psychological level. Not close a candle body quite yet. That is going to be important, but get up and penetrate through on the lower time frames. Okay. Another thing to point out here from Eric Bulkanis, IBIT, now fourth in overall year-to-date flows out of 3,400 ETFs, rubbing elbows with the biggest and best, VU, IVV, QQQ, FBTC, also in there at 7th. Oh, that's cool. So FBTC. So it's not just that IBIT is in the top 10. It now has, a brother in there, the FBTC, which I believe is the Fidelity. If you account for a little GBTC inflow help, which was but a fraction of their intake, it's wild stuff. So let's take a look here. You can see IBIT is number 4 for 2024. It is pretty crazy how fast this has changed. Yeah, you can see, and this is a total measure of the inflows. And as you can see, the inflows here, 4,000. Obviously, this is measured in millions, I believe. So you can see that's quite a high number compared to its peers here, the biggest in the world, right? So definitely nothing to sleep on. This is really, really exciting. And what's also interesting to note is how much less the assets under management are compared to IVV and QQ, right? Which are hundreds of thousands here. And again, these are in millions or potentially billions. I'm not exactly sure, but you can just see the disparity here, showing. And this isn't a bad thing, right? This is just showing how early these ETFs are. How they're early on. They're infants still. They're not even forget being a year old. They're not even 6 months old, right? Not even a quarter old. So it's exciting. It's bullish, and maybe I'm geeking out about something that's really, really exciting stuff. So it's cool. And so to culminate all this, there's actually a pretty nice conclusion here from Fred Krueger. He said, at this point, we need 4.25 billion of new inflows to take us to all-time highs, talking about Bitcoin. Somewhere like 10 to 15 trading sessions or about early March. And that makes a lot of sense for where we are now. Because if we take a look at the stock to flow model, you can see that something important has happened here. Right? 50,000 is not just an important psychological number. 50,000 is also what the stock to flow model has had it's kind of been projecting for Bitcoin's price all throughout. I'll go back. All throughout this whole zone. So basically, right at the end, kind of mid 2021, the stock to flow model, which isn't perfect, obviously it's not perfect. It's an approximation model of where Bitcoin's price should be relative to the halvings, relative to the halvings. It should have been at 50,000 this whole time, right? It's only now getting up there. So what does that mean? It means that the stock to flow model is still intact. Because it really has hovered around. It has, in my opinion, kind of standardly deviated away from that stock to flow model at an appropriate level, right? You can see it had a lot of time below that stock to flow model back here, way back in 2012, right? It spent a lot of time way above in 2015, right? 2014. So this standard deviation, it worried a lot of people when we were down here. At 15,007, hitting those lows from the summer of 2023, folks were like, what the heck, man? The stock to flow model is saying we're supposed to be at 50,000 and we're not. Well, that's how bear markets work. That is how bear markets work. You get a sag in the price, and ultimately that is the best time to buy. Hopefully you were tuned into the Investing Bros and you were doing a lot of buying. Speaking of which, let's go ahead and jump on in here and see what is going on with the chat. I see Crypto Freddy in the chat. That's a new name, I believe. Good morning, bros. T-Shroom, can you do some .ta? .ta got the request. If we have some time at the end, I will. Nancy Croy, first comment of 2024. She said, good morning, everybody. That is so great. Average Crypto Joe said good morning as well. Hey, That's pretty fun. A Mellow Fellow said, "Sup, Justin." So only addressing Justin, not the rest of the bros. I'm just kidding, A Mellow Fellow. I know what's going on here. Eric Wallen saying, "Hey, everyone." And so did Ninja Glock. He said, "Good morning." And good morning, everyone is also what everybody is saying to everyone. And Crypto Mini Bike is no different. You got to love it. You got to love it. Man, I am so honored for all the bros to be tuning in. It is really, really special to be even talking about 50,000. Man, I just remember just a few months ago, remember 28. We got to get above 28,000. Oh, we got to get above 32,000, right? Oh, man, I don't know. There's going to be a really big pullback. We thought there's going to be a really big pullback back down to 25, right? 50,000. 50,000 is what we're talking about now. It has been quite a run, and I think it's only getting started, right? It's only getting started. All the charts that we just looked at really indicate, and this one is the most compelling to me, all of these charts indicate that it's just getting started, right? This is leveling off. The selling, the biggest market participant seller, the biggest bear, if you want to put it into that black and white kind of theme of bulls and bears, the biggest bear is losing its steam. It's losing its sell thesis, right? Those folks who wanted to rotate out of a higher feed ETF likely have done so, or will do so at a much smaller volume, much lower volume throughout the rest of 2023 or 2024, probably waiting until 2025 because of the capital gains incentive to stay in this ETF, right? So the capital gains tax could be north of 30% for some people, right? However, that 1.5% is very, very small compared to 30%. So a lot of people are just saying, "Hey, I'll take the 1.5 hit, even though there's lower fees out there, because it's so much lower. It's a drop in the bucket compared to the capital gains tax I would have to pay by selling in 2024." Okay, so that's why we're not seeing all of it sell out, right? Because objectively, the other ETFs are way better deals. These annual fees are way lower. I believe the next highest is 0.8 versus 1.5 over at GBTC. But you probably already knew that. If you didn't, smash the like because you just got some alpha. Seeing the biggest bear in the market losing its sell thesis, it's really good to see. I love it. I love crushed bears in the morning. It smells great. Well, it doesn't stop there. And now we're getting into the altcoins here. Franklin Templeton, latest to file with the SEC for a spot Ethereum ETF. So BlackRock has already filed. A few others have filed as well. But now Franklin Templeton throwing its hat in the ring. And this could be very, very bullish as the participants and the applicants do go ahead to start to pile in and say, "Hey, we want this. We think that this is good for the market. We think that we can make a little money off of this Ethereum. And we're very, very excited. And we want to sell it. SEC, can we please sell this?" And the SEC is going to decide, I believe it's May 23rd. So that is going to be pretty exciting to see. Now let's jump into the alts and see what we can pull out here. When will these alts pump is kind of the question that I'm asking here. And so let's see. Let's refresh the page here. We're on Cardano. Now, Cardano right now has actually done pretty well. It's done pretty well relative to these highs. Now, you could say that it didn't get very high. It didn't. It didn't get very high when there was a lot of bullishness back in January 10th, kind of in the run-up to the approval of the spot Bitcoin ETF. It didn't get that high, right? But it also didn't fall that far, right? So that's pretty bullish. That's something that we want to continue to see, stability in prices. Now, eventually, we want to see Cardano go to the absolute moon. And I can't sit here and tell you when exactly that's going to be, right? But what I'd say is I am continuing to DCA Cardano, not very aggressively, I will admit, but as long as we can stay above the midline of the Bollinger Band here on the weekly chart, that is generally going to be pretty bullish for Cardano, right? If we get down below that, that could spell a test lower. But right now, the Lux ALGO oscillator matrix is actually seeing a bit of a return to the upside here, at least on the weekly chart. So that is pretty bullish. You do have that money flow coming in positive, moving in the positive direction, I should say. It's not positive till it's green, like back here, but it is coming in and moving in the right direction. Money is flowing in, but you do have a reversal dot up here, which is a little bit ominous. It doesn't give you that nice trifecta of confluence that you like to see here on the Lux ALGO oscillator matrix, but you're getting close. You got 2 out of 3, and it's only a matter of time before you really do get a move higher here for Cardano. But it's going to be it's going to take patience. It's definitely something that the Cardano community is well acquainted with. Over on the MACD, you've seen the rounding of the MACD lines, right, and now consolidating, right? It's not really what you want to see, but it's not the end of the world. Compared to, well, I'm out on the weekly, but compared to Bitcoin, these green histograms have decelerated long ago, right? But it's Bitcoin that leads the market. So we're asking, when will these altcoins pump? For Cardano, it could really be any day. It really could be any day. I do think that Cardano will be pumping along with the rest of the alt market, right? And this is kind of the hack right here, guys. This is kind of the hack. Because we see, and now I need to get off the weekly charts, I need to go back down to the daily. We see that the price has exceeded. This is just simple. It has exceeded the levels. You trade levels, you buy at one level, you sell at another. You got your stop loss somewhere in the mix as well. Bitcoin has exceeded this level here. We started the show talking about this, 47, and now as it has exceeded and is testing, right, as we speak, 49,000, okay? The altcoins are going to have this same pattern. Ethereum just mimicked the same pattern. It came back up and shot through. So that is kind of, for me, that is kind of the flag, right? The starting flag, the checkered flag here we have in the United States for our races, for the alt season, the mini alt season, so to speak. So we need to get a little, but when, right? I don't know the date, but my prediction is that the more sideways movement, especially for Bitcoin, and to some extent for Ethereum, the more sideways movement we get, the more pump in alts, right? That is going to be not so much a win, right? Like WHEN rather than WIN. It's less of a win and more of a what to look out for that altcoin pump, right? But I am absolutely waiting for that. I am watching it like a hawk, right? If we can get this candlestick to at least close above 48.3, right? And not overlay the previous candlestick, then that would be good. That would be really bullish for altcoins, actually, because that would show that there's going to be probably some testing of this 50 mark price point and just sideways movement, especially if we see the same for Ethereum, right? As it tries to get back up to these to these 2024 highs up here at 27,015. As it tries to kind of regain its steam, maybe find a little bit of support here on the upper band of the Bollinger Band. It's not supposed to do that. Then it could potentially be the next alt to really, really pump. But you'd have to say that buyers, the market's probably looking at altcoins saying Ethereum's looking a little overbought for this cycle, right? What do I mean by cycle? That's kind of the whole point here, is that Bitcoin goes up and gets up to its 2024 highs and then exceeds them. And now it's going to come back down and kind of cool off and go sideways. Now there's a chance that, and there's a strong chance that a lot of the big money that a lot of folks have been waiting to come into Bitcoin goes ahead and pulls the trigger now because they determine that they're not going to get a lower price. That would totally throw off what I'm about to say, right? But as long as Bitcoin kind of stays sideways, and that's why I showed you the chart here for Bitcoin, as long as Bitcoin kind of stays sideways and kind of tests that 50 level, it can go down and come back up. But as long as it doesn't get a candlestick above that 50, triggering probably a bigger move higher, we're going to start seeing pumps in the altcoins. First in Ethereum, which we have seen, and then with the other alts. So let's take a look at some of the ones I'm watching like a hawk that I'm almost certain will do this, will follow. This is AVAX, right? AVAX has a 22% move potential to the upside back to those candle closes, right? And then it's got another 4, call it 5% up to those wicks. Will it get there? I think it absolutely will, okay? Matic is kind of in a similar boat here, right? It back up to those candlestick closes would put it at 21%. And then to the wick is 28. And it's staying above that midline of the Bollinger Band, which is what you want to see there on the daily. All right, let's see. Atom has actually been a little bit more bullish, so it's actually not as far away from those upper candlesticks. Okay. Now Atom, actually, I should be measuring down here. Excuse me. Yeah, so it's about 5% away. That's what I was thinking. Make sure I got that right over here on AVAX. I may not have. Oh goodness. I did not. So AVAX has already exceeded here in January 10th. So disregard that. That's already at those January those January 10th highs. Pardon me. Let's go ahead and look at Matic, make sure I'm getting that one right. Yeah, so those are up here, and that does need to be revised. And again, I apologize for that. I'm sorry, guys. Let's see. So that is going to be a revision of 8% and then 12% to the upside. We should be getting our CPI print here. So let's go ahead and jump over to that. Hopefully this is hitting home for you guys. Let's look at HBAR really quick before we move on. So taking a look at this up to the percentage where it was back here in January 10th, you can see about a 6% and then an 11%. So I was just so you guys know, I would feel bad if this isn't hitting home. I was accidentally kind of comparing it to previous highs, and I was getting about 22%, which is wrong, right? The Bitcoin ETF was actually, it kind of pushed prices up in this area, right? So I still think that these altcoins are going to come up and push these 2024 highs, right? But ultimately, these are the highs that we're comparing. So in this case, HBAR has about another 6%, right? So hopefully I've made that clear for you guys. Let's go ahead and check on the CPI, and then we're going to go ahead and end the stream. Let's make sure that we've got the correct CPI, that we're not getting the CPI for Liechtenstein or something crazy. Here we go. All right, so so the data is in here. So for the year over year, that's the one I'm really interested in. Core inflation year over year, and then the headline inflation is here. All right, so this was the core. The actual was higher, okay? So higher than forecasted and consensus. And then the headline is higher than consensus but met forecast. Okay. So overall, so far this is a pretty bearish reading, meaning that inflation was higher than predicted. So it leans bearish. But here's something that I will say, is that the Fed really needs to see much more of a margin between the consensus and the actual, between the forecast and the actual. And I don't think this is enough of a margin, right? I mean, especially in core. Yeah. So I'm thinking this is, the data says bearish. It just generally, it objectively says bearish. But what I'll say is I think this is actually fairly bullish because it's only, 0.2 off in the widest margin between the consensus and the actual. So why do I say this? Well, so the Fed, they don't want to come across as dumb. And we're going to go a couple minutes after here. The Fed doesn't want to come across as dumb. So if they're changing their policy month to month, 1 month they're hiking, the next month they're cutting, that's bad. That's like the worst case scenario from an optics standpoint, right? When those pivots come, when they do change, like recently they've changed from hiking to pausing. We're still in that pausing phase, and the market is anticipating a cutting phase, right? What this data comes out and tells me is probably that next cut, at worst, is just going to be further out in the timeline versus not going to happen at all. Not going to happen at all in 2024 would have been like the actual comes in at 4%, right? Or something grossly off of what economists and the market was thinking. But ultimately here, I think the market is getting it very close. They did come in under, right? The market estimated under what the actual print was, which is, objectively bearish. But overall, I'm thinking that this is actually pretty bullish because the Fed is not going to say that they're not going to cut because of this. I think that their worst case scenario, again, is that they just don't cut in March or in May. But I think probably we're going to get a cut in May at least, if not March. But we'll see. Well, overall, hopefully you all have gotten some insight on when the alt pump is going to take place. Again, the alt pump will take place. I'll just illustrate it here. Not so much a win, not so much a WHEN, but the more that Bitcoin remains sideways and stays below 50,000, I think that's important too. If it gets up above 50,000 and stays sideways, it's kind of like a time bomb that could just shoot up at any time. But I think the longer it doesn't print a candlestick above 50,000, the more that the altcoins have an opportunity to pump. Why? Because folks are taking profit, right? New money is rotating in and buying and providing exit liquidity for money that was all buying in here and is now taking profit, saying, hey, I don't want to wait around. I can go make more money elsewhere, altcoins, right? I don't want to wait around and sit in this period of consolidation for Bitcoin. I want to rotate into AVAX, into Polygon, into Solana, right? Into Litecoin, whatever it's going to be. Thanks so much for tuning in. 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We're going to have a very special guest. Jenna X is joining the show, and I cannot be any more excited. When I post the promo, make sure you guys retweet it from my account and from the Investing Bros account on X, and make sure you tune in. 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. CPI, not looking too bad. Altcoin season, the mini one, will be here very, very soon. As long as we get continued sideways movement for Bitcoin, stay hydrated, and if you're trading, keep those stop losses tight. See you at 3 p.m., bros.
Trying to make paper, turn that better to cake. Money like Lego, connect the dots stack bank. We are investing bros. We are investing bros. Army pipe, lethal on trade. Entries and exits, worthy of praise. Tim, the professor of the TA. Shout it out loud on the PA. T-Shrooms news, catch a word. Doing better than what he deserves. Beamer, leave no evidence. Soon fly coop with his dividend. Trying to make paper, turn that better to cake. Money like Lego, connect the dots stack bank. We are investing bros. We are investing bros.